Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:20 p.m. on Saturday, October 2nd, 2021. Hope you had a great week. And just dropping a video here, and I'm going to try to keep this pretty short because I actually have to head out here soon. But this is a little bit different. This is a potential strategy for those who want to only take, few trades because they just don't have the time to look at charts all the time, or you just like to be able to take a trade and hold it for a long time. And so this is a strategy basically using the daily time frame and just using trend lines and this one indicator at the bottom, which is the money flow index. I know you can't see off to the left here, but in MetaTrader it is a standard indicator. If you go under indicators and then volumes, it's right here. It's money flow index, and I have it set to a period of 14, which I believe is the default setting anyways. So whatever the default is, I think you can just leave it there. Okay, so it's the money flow index oscillator. Actually, it's a volume indicator. And that's it, that and trend line. So I know I have this 200 period moving average on here. You really don't need that for this strategy. Okay. So I'm going to just show you a handful of pairs really quick. So the theory behind this, guys, is when the market is moving in a range like this, whether it's up or down, and you can see clearly we're bouncing between these levels, and you can easily draw trend lines in here. You can use the money flow index to kind of confirm whether it's whether that touch of that trend line is potentially going to reverse back up, or whether it's going to finally break out and go to the upside. And in this case, I'm particularly focusing on this pair, the touches down at the bottom here. Okay, so if we grab the crosshair and we look at the money flow index, when the price comes down here, you can see we have divergence. Okay, and divergence again is where the price goes in one direction, in this case down. If you connect these two lows with a little trend line here, and you look at the oscillator during the same time, you can see the oscillator is trending up. So when price comes down and hits this trend line, and you've got divergence, bullish divergence in this case, then it's a very strong likelihood this is going to reverse, and of course it did. Okay, and we didn't touch right here, so you really can't use this point. And this was the initial point right here when it came down. So this was really the first touch. So although it did bouncy, you really can't use it because you don't have a corresponding recent swing low connected here. So it really starts, later on in the process, usually after the first hit, usually on any subsequent touches to the trend line is where you can use this. Okay, so the first one kind of establishes the range, and then after that you see it start to move. So if you look on your daily charts, and if it's got to be really obvious, guys, if you have to if you don't see the obvious areas at the top and bottom, especially where you're looking for the entries, then don't use this strategy. Okay, and you can also see it from the top. So I told you this one you really have to kind of ignore because this was the first one. But if you go up to the top here and you look at the money flow index here, okay, we had price trend up right here. And if you look at the money flow index during that time, it was trending down. And sure enough, it bounced off of here, and then we moved sideways. So, and you want to make sure it's touching the trend line. Okay, so this area in here, you wouldn't want to have traded this anyways because you can see it's very choppy and sideways. There's no trading in here anyways, at least not on this time frame. But then you have this one here, which I just showed you, and then we came up again, and we touched the top of the trend line here. Okay, now when we got up here, if we put a vertical line on this, let's put it on this high right here, right where it touched the top of the trend line. This is what I'm looking at right here. And then you look at the money flow index. This is where the money flow index was. So now let's put a little vertical line down here. Okay, and we look at that versus the last swing high. Okay, we do still have divergence here. Okay, because this was the last swing high up here, and we made another swing high, although it's a lower high, and we still have divergence. You can see this where the money flow index was back here compared to over here. Okay, so but in this case, because it's going down, okay, and it's corrective. I'm more focused on the lower touches, okay, but you can use it across the top as well. So now we bring it to where we are right now. And you can see we bounced and we've came down. And of course, this is where the market closed on yesterday on Friday. So I know I have two arrows right here. This arrow I actually have drawn on a shorter time frame, but it's showing up on the daily. This one I just added to the daily. So I'm going to be watching this area really close. Are we going to roll over, come back down, and hit the trend line again? Or are we going to keep going up from here? Now, if you look where the money flow index is right now, it's very low. Okay, it's very low. Look how low it is. It's broken all these lows, and it hasn't even gotten back to this trend line yet. So my initial gut is that this will continue down, but you can't really say there's divergence because we haven't made a new low yet. So I'm going to wait and see what happens. But this is what I'm watching. This is the Kiwi dollar. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one that's happening pretty much right now, and this is the Euro Aussie. Okay, here's the daily chart, and you can see this very clear trend line with all these touches, and every time we've hit it, we've bounced. And now we're right back at it again. So if you look at this low right here, where it's hit the trend line, okay, we do have divergence, right? We have price making we have price right here, okay, and then we have the oscillator going up, okay. In this case, the divergence isn't really clear because technically we don't have a new swing low on price yet, although this really isn't adjusted very well. Yeah, we do have divergence here. Let me see if I can zoom in a tiny bit. Yeah, I mean it's pretty much the same. But we haven't gotten quite touched the trend line yet, so you can see it's pretty much the same, but yet we have bullish divergence, okay, on the trend line. I mean on the oscillator. So this is one I'm going to watch very close. This may come down a little bit more. I would suspect maybe we'll come down because we haven't quite touched the trend line yet. So we may see a little pop to the downside, very little. A little spike down, maybe, 20-25 pips, maybe poke through it, with a little wick like these. So, maybe we come down 25 pips or so, break, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm not looking to take this long yet, but this is one I'm watching. So that's another one. The euro dollar is another one. Here's the euro dollar on the daily chart. We have all these touches, and now we've touched it again. And I'm actually in a short position here, which it's a very tight stop, but honestly, if this works out, then I'm going to get stopped out of this, but it's a very short position, and I'm only expecting this to go down a little bit more, but I do think maybe we make another run down here. So, but if not, then I'm going to be using this strategy to potentially take this longer. Now, the other reason why I've kind of looked at taking this short, and that maybe this will continue down, is because we don't really have great divergence here. You can see, price made a new low. I'm just looking between this swing and this swing, right? And then the oscillator in that time has stayed pretty flat. Okay, so I don't know if that's going to diverge or not. So we'll see what happens. But this is another one to watch. Okay, the dollar Canadian. Here's another one. Okay, this is the daily chart where we haven't quite gotten there yet, but let's see what happens with this one. This might have been our touch right here, and now this is a correction. This will go up. So, but let's see what happens with the dollar Canadian. That's another one, and I might look to take a long here. Either way, this might be a corrective move on a shorter time frame. Here was our touch. We went up. We've corrected. Now maybe we'll come up from here. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Let's see. Pound Swiss is another one. Pound Swiss. Here's the daily. We haven't gotten there yet. Okay. So again, we had this bounce up, down. Okay. Now again, I have two arrows here. This one's on the shorter time frame. I think off the 15-minute. I'm looking maybe to have this bounce up, or will this come down and make another touch? So I'll be watching the pound Swiss, and then the pound yen is the exact same thing as the pound Swiss. Okay, Will we get this push back down here, back to the trend line, or was this the last touch and then eventually it will go up? Because eventually, guys, these things are going to burn themselves out, okay? And it will break out of these channels one way or another, either up or down, okay? But it's just a question of how many touches are you going to get. But either way, the whole point of this is you go to your daily chart, you draw these trend lines. When you've got, and you need to be able to connect at least 3 highs or 3 lows, and it should be really obvious, okay? You shouldn't have to really fight it. So on this pair, we did have this false breakout, okay? But putting this aside, 1, 2, 3 touches, so your trend line is there. Here's your 4th touch. Now, eventually, guys, after that 4th touch especially, these things start to, get a little bit old. So you need to be cautious because eventually there will be a breakout, okay? But this is another one to watch, okay? So really, like I said, guys, it's just a matter of using your daily chart, plotting out where you see obvious points you connect. And again, if you can't do it easily, if it's kind of a mess and you can't really draw a good trend line, then don't try to force it. It's not there, okay? And just don't use that strategy. But if you can do that, then you can use the money flow index and you can try to play these bounces in between just using the money flow index and divergence, okay? Eventually things are going to break out. And let me just see, I didn't do this, but I don't know if this one qualifies. So, eventually you are going to get a breakout. So, Euro Yen, here was one that broke out, then we've had a retest. And, is this going to continue up now? We'll see what that does. Yeah, here's Canadian yen. So eventually, it does look like you get these breakouts. We had this last touch down here. There was bullish divergence. It went up, but this time it broke out. Okay. Although we haven't made a new high on the money flow index at this high. So is this going to be a sustained move up? Yeah, we'll see. But, this is what I'm talking about. Eventually, these do break out. But as long as they keep, respecting these trend lines, then this is a good strategy to use off of a daily trend line, daily chart, and to go in there and just look for places where, price was consolidating, moving between the trend lines, and then broke out. Here's the pound versus the dollar. This one looks like it's already in play. Again, we came down, boom, 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 and then we had this latest touch, and we've had 2 days off this trend line. Okay, price come down, tag it. Now we're 2 days into this trend line break. Okay, we don't have great divergence here, but it's pretty much. Yeah, no, actually we do. Okay, if you look at this swing low versus this one where we touch the trend line, we do have divergence here. Okay, because we had price moving down and we had the trend line trending back up. Okay, so anyways, this is what I'm talking about, guys. Just to continue to this is just another methodology you can use on a long time frame. I wouldn't suggest doing this on a shorter time. You could play around with it, but it's not going to be as accurate on a shorter time frame. So again, this is, you can use this. I mean, even if you have a strategy or you like looking at shorter time frames for more frequent trades, this is still something you can incorporate. And have an additional strategy in your back pocket. Because, obviously these are daily candles. These are going to take a long time to play out. So you just put these trend lines on here on the daily chart and then just let the market do what it's doing. And then when it gets close back to one of these trend lines on the daily, then you can go and focus on that as a potential longer term trade you can take in the direction of that bounce. Okay. So like I said, even if you like trading on a shorter time frame, you're looking for other trade setups, this is still something you can have in the background. And you just need to be aware of when these touches happen and understand that if you see any kind of divergence on your MFI indicator, that's a good potential reversal trade to take, even if it's just bouncing in between these trend lines. Okay, if I drew an upper trend line here, if this bounces, then my minimum target would be for it to get back up into this area, which is depending how long it takes, is 170, 180, 150, however long it takes for it to get back up here, it's still a significant number of pips, even if it goes no further, okay? So that's just a trade you can take and set and forget it, okay? So this has already happened. So maybe I go to a shorter time frame and I look for an opportunity to reestablish a long position. That's what I have this arrow drawn right here. We broke out. This is an hourly chart. We broke out above these moving averages. Potentially this is an area of opportunity to wait for a little pullback here and then take this long back up to this trend line, okay? So that's what I'm saying, that if you miss these, or if you can go to a shorter time frame, and this is where you can combine these two strategies. So you get this break, you get this setup right here, and then you go to your shorter time frame, and this is where you look for your entries around the 1 hour chart maybe, and this is where you look for your little pullbacks. Wait for this to pull back. You had an opportunity here. There's probably another opportunity forming here. It could come all the way back, around where this arrow is, so a little bit more retracement somewhere in this area between these moving averages, back to around this previous high right here, and then look for this to go. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be watching that pair, the dollar Swiss is the same thing, only in the opposite direction. So all right, so that's it, guys. I'm gonna keep it pretty short, and so again, daily strategy, obvious clear trend lines where you connect at least 3 points. Use the money flow index only on that daily. Look for divergence when there's a touch onto that moving average, and wait for it to touch. Don't try to be cute and jump the gun, because you could end up suffering a loss if you're too premature on it. And then once it hits that, look for divergence off that MFI on the daily chart. And if you have it, it's a pretty good safe bet to take a position bouncing off that trend line, either the upper or the lower trend line, and go and just stay with it until it gets back to the yellow trend line at least. And if you miss the initial entry, like say on this, if it hit this trend line, then you could wait for a pullback on a shorter time frame and then rejoin the trend in that direction, which is what I'll be looking for here on the cable. All right. So again, guys, questions, comments, concerns, drop them down there in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, smash that like button if you do nothing else. And like I said, subscribe to the channel if you're just finding it for the first time. And ring that bell notification, and so you'll get notified when I post a video, which again is no more than 1 or 2 days a week. All right, so I'll update you on these as we go into next week and see where they work out. Or you can certainly just make note of them and watch them on your own charts, and you'll see how they play out. All right. And that's it, guys. Have a good rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you soon.